Welcome. Welcome on this morning where it was the first time since I've been in California that I woke up to frost on my car and had to scrape the back windshield before I could drive off. Marjorie Montgomery has opening words where she says, "We gather in community to celebrate the glory. Life is a gift for which we are grateful." That's an understatement. But we gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries and the responsibilities of this great gift. As we ring the bell in the new year, I would like us to pause because and listen to the words again for the first time, if we can, and then ask the question, how does that resonate within each of us? I heard these words that you use to ring the bell for the first time when I came here, but I realize now that they have become a little bit rote in that I say them and they just pass. But this is how we open our service every Sunday. So take a moment to pause with the words and ask the question, what do these words mean for me and to me? In other words, how do I hear them? We say that we're going to ring the bell 3 times. The first is to call us back into covenant. That is, to call us back into relation with our promises. We say we are on the unceded land of the Muwekma tribe of the Ohlone people. Now they seek to regain their land as well as pass on their heritage, customs, and culture to their descendants. Everything we do to restore their rights, equality, and sovereignty is working our way back into covenant. I have driven around this completely settled space of land between the mountains and the bay now for 3 months. And that question of what does it mean to live on colonized land has bounced around in my head, land that is mostly paved over, except for our yards. And what does that mean that these people are trying to regain their land as well as pass on their heritage, customs, and culture to their descendants? How do we participate in that? How might we? I don't know. As I ring the bell, ask yourself, how does this resonate within me? It's a new year and a new way of hearing. The second bell calls us into relationship with ourselves and with one another, to recognize our broken promises, unhealed hurts, lingering scars, where being right was more important than being whole. We intentionally gather to invite an ever-widening circle of compassion, commitment, and solidarity until we are all beloved to one another. How does that resonate within you? And the third bell calls us into relationship with our children, our children's children, and all the way out to the 7th generation. Actually calls us into relationship then with all that is. It helps us to realize that what we do with our lives matter. A caring world is possible after all, and whether it happens or not is partly our responsibility. How does that resonate in this new year with you? Welcome. It is good to be together.
Good morning. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Vaughn Bringhurst. I'm the choir director here, and I am grateful that Reverend Jim asked me to give the call to worship this morning. As we reflect upon the changing of one calendar year to another, at least in this current system of calendars, I thought about one of my favorite hymn tunes, which you will hear as part of our anthem today. And I thought about the many different ways that many cultures and religious traditions all over the world call to all of us, either through some sort of sound or something that is designed to carry across a long range at great distance. And for many of us, and for many of us here, that is by ringing bells. And we hear bell ringing often at times of great joy and at times of great sorrow, and also in times of great urgency. And so, as this bell and many other bells you will hear ring in the next hour, think about which of those things vibrates sympathetically with you.
Am I out of order? Many people involved this morning. Doug Hammarskjöld wrote, "Each morning we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, and give back. Let us remember these as we light our chalice, reciting together our standard chalice lighting words." We light this chalice to remind ourselves to treat all people kindly, because we are all one family, to take good care of the earth, because it is our home, to live lives full of goodness and love, because that is how we will become the best people we can be.
Good morning, friends, beloved community. Welcome to Mission Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Jay Steele. My pronouns are he and his, and I'm a member of the board, your fearless treasurer, as a matter of fact. We are so glad you've joined us this morning. I'm going to start out by highlighting some current announcements. Next Sunday, we say farewell to Reverend Jim, a little sadly, and welcome back Reverend Greg. Today is our final collection date for this year's campaign for Guest at Your Table. That's to support the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. So if anybody still has the means or whatever, we're collecting that today in the baskets. Registration for the Pacific Western Regional Assembly is opening January 4th, which already happened. That's happening in April, I think in Denver, Colorado. There are volunteer opportunities with the Youth Voter Movement, January 24th through the 15th of February. See Week in the Peak for details. And lastly, please silence your electronic devices. Unitarian Universalism is a radically inclusive, non-doctrinal, non-dogmatic, open-minded, and open-hearted faith. We are people who are coming at truth from different paths. We gather together across different identities, experiences, and beliefs to affirm and promote the inherent worth of every person. Together, we see our job is to love the hate out of this world, heal the hurt in ourselves and one another, and to be the change we'd like to see in the world. If you're our guest for the first time, we welcome you. Here's a bit of information on how our hybrid services work. We use chat and Zoom up there or the book near the welcome table. to share joys and concerns, personal milestones of importance, which will be read aloud during the service. We also have social hour after the service, where we get to visit one another in breakout rooms on Zoom or on the patio, or maybe inside, because it's a little cold today. The worship host, Eric, will provide more information about this immediately after the service. Someone from our membership team, probably Annette, will put a link in our weekly newsletter in chat so you can see all the events coming up. We encourage you to join anything that speaks to you. We have a welcome email, welcome@mpuuc.org, to request a newsletter. If you're here in person, our welcome table is right over there, where you can sign up to receive a newsletter. Finally, please make sure your mobile devices are silenced. We are so glad to be together today. And let's end by asking everybody in Zoomlandia and everybody here in Cole Hall to wave to one another and feel the joy of being part of one large, beloved community. Welcome and thank you to our members and friends near and far.
Please rise in body or in spirit, and we'll sing our welcoming hymn, Bells in the High Tower. Hymnal is on your chairs there, because many of us have never sung this hymn ever before. In our time for all ages, the story this morning is called The Beautiful Tiger. And I know you can't see it, and I wasn't artistic enough to draw the picture, but there is the beautiful tiger. The beautiful tiger. And this is again by my friend Chris Bice, and it's really great to visit these, and they're stories I never used before, but to get to use them here. And remember, it's a story. There once was a beautiful and powerful tiger. One day, she was captured by a mean and cruel man who put her into a cage. The man kept the cage in the jungle not far from his house. Every day he would bring out a bowl of water and some food for the lonely tiger. Sometimes the tiger would see her own reflection in the bowl, and she would say, "My, I must be a beautiful tiger." When the man heard her say this, he would lie and tell her, "No, you are not a beautiful tiger. You're very ugly. You're a pitiful creature." Even though I know this is a story, it's really hard for me to read that line. Because sadly, the tiger would believe the man. Some days after she ate her food, she would walk back and forth in her small cage and feel energy and power moving through her body, and she would say, "My, I must be a powerful tiger." When the man heard her say this, he would lie and tell her, "No, you are weak and puny. You are a pitiful creature." Sadly, the tiger would believe the man. Then one day, when the man was nowhere around, a lion happened to walk by the cage. The lion saw the tiger inside the cage and spoke to her. "Beautiful and powerful tiger, what are you doing lying about in that cage?" "Do not make fun of me," replied the tiger. "I know that I am neither beautiful nor powerful." "I'm not making fun of you," said the lion. "You are surely the most beautiful and powerful tiger I have ever seen. I am only surprised to see you lying here when you are clearly strong enough to break out of that cage." "You really think I could break out of here?" asked the tiger. "Quite easily, I should think," replied the lion. The tiger was not so sure at first. She had been told so many times that she was a weak and pitiful creature. But suddenly it seemed that she could feel energy and strength moving through her body. She began to pace back and forth in her cage, and then, almost without thought, she leapt against the cage door, and it flew open without any resistance. Once outside, she seemed dazed. She looked around. She said, "That cage didn't even have a lock on it. I spent so much of my life stuck in there, and the door wasn't even locked." The lion looked at her with soft brown eyes and said, "Those kinds of traps don't need locks. For it is the lies we believe in that keep us in our cages, and it is the truth that sets us free." I think we have all heard who we aren't or what we aren't, even if it's just from the voices in our own head. The beautiful tiger broke out of the cage of who she wasn't by being who she was. As we start this new year, what are the bars of thinking who we aren't that we've locked ourselves into? I think of one for me is the cage that says, "I'm too old for that," to think into that future. There are real bars that we reinforce then with what we tell ourselves. I have a friend who I've known since she was 10 or 11. She's now 23. She has 2 cats that she's grown up with. One is confident and secure in who he is, all day long, all the time. He always has been. His name's Pepper. If you scratch his belly, he'll reach out with his paws, his claws inside, and just pull your arm down and say, "Stay there," and keep petting me. He knows what he's about. The other cat is Muffin, and he's not so sure about life in general. He's kind of nervous and standoffish and easily spooked. But my friend picks him up, looks him in the face. He won't let me pick him up. She picks him up, looks him in the face, and tells him every day, "Muffin, you're kind, you're smart, you're important. You're kind, you're smart, you're important. And now, these years later, you can see the difference. Muffin is more kind and more smart and definitely more easily important. You're kind, you're smart, you're important. It's a good story. Paul.
We take up a collection each week. We have various words that we say about it, but I'm thinking about our service. We take up a collection because the bell rings 3 times. The bell rings once for what we have been able to earn in our life. The bell rings the second time for what we are able to give now, both of our treasure and of our talents to support this community. And the bell rings the third time for the future, for the good that will be accomplished for what we give in the present time. Today is also the boundary of gift at your table. This is the last day that you can make a contribution to gift at your table to the Unitarian, to this specific program of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. You can donate to the committee whenever you want to, but this will count as guest in your table. The theme this year of guest in your table is Pursuing Liberation, and it focuses on UUSC's works with partner organizations in communities around the world fighting for the right to seek safety in Mexico and the United States, convincing the United Nations International Court of Justice to address the human rights threatened by the climate crisis in the South Pacific, replenishing the energy of human rights activists in Eastern Europe. New USC partners invite us into an expansive, regenerative space to pursue liberation. If you do make a contribution to that cause today, write in the memo line of a check, GAYT, guest at your table. Otherwise, your contribution will be accepted either as your pledge or as simply a general contribution to the congregation. And I believe we have a slide explaining that we accept checks, we accept cash, we accept clicks on our web page. We accept you contacting your bank and using bill pay to send money to us. Any way that it comes, we do our best to accept it and to use it for the work of this congregation. We thank you.
This is our time to share those joys and concerns, those excitements, those sorrows that are on our hearts and that we would like to place into the care, the thoughts, the feelings of this community. If you would like to do that at this point, you may write a joy or a concern in the chat, or you can do it in the book. Please do it briefly and add your name and whether it is a joy or a concern, or you can come forward and light a candle. These candles just brighten up by placing them into the water. You don't have to turn them on or anything. You just place them there. You can use that. If your need is personal, you can also send an email to me at revjim@mpuuc.org, or preferably to Barbara at her email, which I think is in the program. But you want to say what it is, Barbara? Oh, there it is. Okay. So for a follow-up conversation, if you'd like. So please come forward at this time and light a light.
Do we still light them? We should light them.
You just place them in the water and they light. Okay. In the chat, we have, let's see, oh, we have a lot. Here. So finally, one last candle for those hopes and hurts, those joys, those concerns that were not shared aloud, but are nonetheless a part of all of us gathered here. Sometimes silence says so much more than words. And before we end this time of joys and concerns, following up on Eric's service from last Sunday, I would like to close with a loving kindness meditation. So I'd ask you to just repeat silently these lines after I say them. And in your head, you'll say them back. And this was taught to me years ago by a Burmese monk, and you've heard it before. It starts out very specific and moves to the general. Breathe. May I be well, happy, and peaceful. May my family be well, happy, and peaceful. May my friends be well, happy, and peaceful. May my teachers be well, happy, and peaceful. May my enemies be well, happy, and peaceful. May indifferent persons be well, happy, and peaceful. May all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May all that is be well, happy, and peaceful. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. Thank you. This morning's reflection revolves around stories I brought back from experiences I had during a month-long trip to Panama in the summer of 2017. I shared them during a service at the Hendersonville congregation where I served. I did the talk from notes, and for some reason I never typed them up. Something happened, and I must have thrown out the folder when I cleaned out my office. But a Potter friend in the congregation, Honey Burrell, gave me a beautiful plaque she'd made after the service, a tablet, really, from the notes that she'd taken on her program while I talked. The gift and she have a special place in my heart, and the tablet sits in its own corner on the display nook in my living room. It once hung on the wall in the dining room, but it's kind of small. I was sitting in the living room thinking about the service topics for my time here, and I just happened to look up and more than merely noticed the plaque, I really looked at it and saw that it could really work as the focus for a New Year reflection. You'll see if that turns out to be the case, but I also wanted to revisit what Honey had worked into clay. And that green thing on the edge is a turtle. It's a baby turtle. Keep living life. No Wi-Fi, go surf. Be careful. There are baby turtles out there. As I thought about it in the context of a tablet, it brought back from a journey, heading into the new year and preparing for this service and thinking about sabbatical and all of that, I couldn't help noticing how the stories of the tablet fit the arc of the hero's journey in many ways. It's also in our chalice lighting. Each morning, we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, and then to give back. I don't think I'd ever thought of it that way before, at least not in a long time. A journey, then a treasure or boon of insights found and brought back and shared with the community. So last week, to learn more about the hero's journey, I revisited Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyer's conversation in The Power of Myth. It was the first time I'd looked at it, and I bet 30 years I'd been there, done that. And to talk about it, just everybody does that, you know. But I hear so many different things in it now. I'm a different me than I was then. My questions are different. I read with new eyes and listen with new ears. And now it's on Audible, and I can take it with me when I hike in Coyote Hills. I commend at least the first 2 chapters to you. And listening to it is maybe even better than watching it. So here's an excerpt for today from the first chapter, The Hero's Adventure. From the intro to episode 1, Bill Moyers and mythologist Joseph Campbell begin their groundbreaking and timeless conversation with an exploration of the classic hero cycle, including consistent and enduring hero patterns in literature, real life, and even the film Star Wars. Campbell also encourages us to view parts of our own lives as heroic journeys. Bill Moyers said, Joseph Campbell was considered one of the world's foremost authorities on mythology, the stories and legends told by human beings through the ages to explain the universe and their place in it. Joseph Campbell was one of the most spiritual men I ever met, says Bill Moyers, but he didn't have an ideology or a theology. Mythology was to him the song of the universe, music so deeply embedded in our collective unconscious that we dance to it. In our conversations over the last 2 summers of his life, we talked about many things, but we always came around to his favorite subject, the hero with 1,000 faces. Bill Moyers says, why the hero with 1,000 faces? Campbell, well, because there is a certain typical hero sequence of actions which can be detected in stories from all over the world and from many, many periods of history. And I think it's essentially, you might say, the one deed done by many, many people. So in all these cultures, whatever costume the hero might be wearing, what is the deed? Joseph Campbell says, for a hero, there are 2 types of deed. One is the physical deed, and the other is the spiritual hero who has learned a mode of experiencing the supernormal, that is, that's outside of routine, the supernormal range of human spiritual life, and then comes back and communicates it. It's a cycle, a going and a return that the hero cycle represents. The basic motif of the hero journey is leaving one condition, finding the source of life to bring you forth in a richer or more mature or other condition. Bill Moyers says, so that if we happen not to be heroes in the grand sense of redeeming society, we have to take that journey ourselves, spiritually, psychologically, inside us. Joseph Campbell, that's right. The real problem of the hero's journey, he says, is of losing primarily thinking about yourself and your own self-protection. There's a big transformation of consciousness that is concerned. He says what all of the hero myths have to deal with is transformation of consciousness, that you're thinking in this way and you now have to think in that way. Moyers, well, how is the consciousness transformed? Campbell, by the trials. Moyers, the tests that the hero undergoes. Campbell, the tests or certain illuminating revelations. Trials and revelations are what it's all about. That's so fun. As I said in the introduction to the reading, when I first thought of sharing the lines on the plaque in a service here as suggestions for the new year, I hadn't consciously connected them with the hero's journey yet. I certainly wasn't thinking of myself in terms of being a hero. It was more like I needed to come up with something for the Committee on Ministry to put on their sabbatical brochure for January, and it was July. But I then made the connection of the clay tablet with Moses and the tablets on which were inscribed the Ten Commandments, hence the title of the 3 suggestions. But I hadn't thought of Moses climbing Mount Sinai and returning with the tablets as an archetypal hero's journey until I heard Joseph Campbell reference it. As he said, he returned with the Ten Commandments as guidelines that then transformed the society. And I certainly didn't know that the worship theme for January was Epiphany. One of the things Vaughn used in organizing his hymns for this service was the theme of Epiphany. This weekend is the celebration in some Christian congregations of Epiphany, of the wise magi, which, as Paul Davis reminded us, might not have even been men. Anyway, and in their journey of going and finding a treasure and then returning and sharing that news in the world. Epiphany can be an illuminating discovery, realization, or disclosure, a moment of clarity. It can also be more a sudden intuitive perception of or insight into the reality or essential meaning of something, usually initiated by something simple, homely, or commonplace, that aha moment, a revelation. So if you think about it, me noticing the tablet on my shelf had that quality of an epiphany. Making the connection to the hero's journey was an epiphany, and realizing that each line on the tablet had been a moment of insight to Honey herself, such that she had taken notes and then immortalized it in clay, was another epiphany for me. That's why sitting with the thought and experience and noticing more and more is called reflection, or reflecting, I think, taking the time for it to bounce back and forth. An epiphany becomes a treasure or a boon, a blessing, not just because of the line, but because of the story that goes with it. A heroic journey is a story, a going and a return, a bringing back and sharing. It can be the story that you are living when you have the epiphany, or it can be the story you are remembering when you think about it again, and it registers differently. You hear with different ears, as well as the story that was happening to you and for you when you first experienced the moment or picked up the treasure, as it were. The key word here is experience, and experienced in you. Bill Moyers said that Joseph Campbell believed that everything begins with a story. But when Moyers asked Campbell if what we are hoping to find in our seeking is the meaning of life, that's what Moyers actually said it was that. Campbell responded, I don't think the meaning of life is what we're seeking. I think what we're seeking is the experience of being alive. Just that phrase, the experience of being alive. So that our life experiences on the purely physical plane will have resonances within our innermost being and reality, so that we actually feel the rapture of being alive. I would word it as we may just actually feel a moment, a little moment of joy or of right relationship in and with life in our lives, such that we notice and we go, yeah, that feels right. The inscriptions on the tablet are illuminating revelations from experiences, for me, of being truly alive. And now they have become epiphanies and suggestions for living fully. Treasured insights into right relationship with life. So here's a brief connection with the stories behind them. In August of 2017, I traveled with my lifelong friends, brothers Doug and Steve, and Doug's son, who was a rising high school senior. And he came with us. He'd been having a hard year, and he came with us to Panama. And we stayed a few days in Panama City to tour the canal and do all that stuff. We visited some friends near Playa Venal for a couple of days, and then they just dropped us off at a surf camp on a long, undeveloped stretch of beach for the rest of the month. We didn't have a car, and as you can see from the line on the plaque, there was no Wi-Fi. The rooms were built above an open area downstairs, which was a common room just overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The sign on one of the columns above the bar read, "No Wi-Fi, go surf." We took that literally. For cell phone reception, you could walk about 100 yards to this Australian pine. It was called, they said you could walk 100 yards to the magic tree, where at the right time you could get a couple of bars of signal. So the crowded world of constant connection was not even a choice to turn off or not. It just wasn't possible. We spent our time surfing. We switched from wave skis to stand-up paddleboards, so we were learning a new way of doing it. So we spent our time doing that, preparing food in the backpacker's kitchen, hanging out together in hammocks and on the couch, and reading long books. I even got halfway through Moby Dick. No Wi-Fi, go surf. When we returned to our hometown in Central Florida, where we'd grown up, Babson Park, I went to see Doug and Steve's mother, Helen, before I drove back to North Carolina to start up the beginning of the program year at the congregation. Helen was 96 at that point. We enjoyed a good visit catching up, and I shared how much I'd enjoyed the trip and how much it had meant to me to do and to spend time with everyone. And as I got up to leave, she was still sitting in her chair that had a view of Crooked Lake. That was the lake we grew up on. There was also a painted bunting in the bird feeder, which was over here, a special bird feeder that only allows birds that size through. But detail, on my way to the door, I was saying something about how I wanted to live more like this, and I wasn't sure I would be able to keep doing things like this in this way and have these feelings and how much it had meant to me. And she looked up at me from her chair as I stood with the kitchen door partly open, and she said simply, "Keep living life." I can still hear the tinkle of the panes of the jalousie door as I closed it behind me. The words landing in my awareness, keep living life. Two suggestions now put next to each other on the tablet, one adding to the meaning of the other. No Wi-Fi, go surf. Keep experiencing being alive. Keep living life. Live real. Don't live removed. Don't live afraid. Don't back off or give up too soon. Don't stay in the cages of your mind. Personally, I find it all very hard to do, literally with the Wi-Fi. I find myself swimming in an ocean of algorithms designed to distract me, scare me, and take my attention away from my life, my living, and my good intentions, away from living reflectively and soulfully, and I go right to it and I fall right down the rabbit hole every damn time. Go surf is a literal moment of feeling alive. It's also metaphoric for putting myself out there into the living waters, riding the wave and waves of life and living fully, not holding back because of my fears. It is a description of the challenge of a daily hero's journey in a world that would have us live and think we like the living that is otherwise. Keep living what? Keep living life, being fully alive, however you are alive. And this was all pre-COVID. And then the new meanings for me and us post-COVID. And a lot of those have even just come into my awareness just in making this trip out here and being with you. No Wi-Fi, go surf. Even as Mission Peak congregation, as you move back into being together again, taking advantage of what the online can do for us and is doing and making possible. But at the same time, how do we ask the question, what is real life? What is textured life? What is connected life? How does it all take form and how can we help provide it? And the last line on the tablet, be careful. There are baby turtles out there. Speaks to living beyond ourselves, being called to expand our circle of compassion and thinking of others. Sea turtles were still nesting in August, and some nests were hatching, and poaching and predation of turtle eggs is a huge problem. Most nests on this stretch of beach are discovered and destroyed, but a couple of the volunteers at the camp maintained a vivero, or a nursery, for turtle eggs. They patrolled the beach at night and transferred the eggs to a screened enclosure. One nest hatched while a family from Switzerland with 2 little girls, about 8 and 10, were staying at the camp. And they gathered around as we watched the hatchlings make their way in the dark down the beach, and into the surf. They're about this big going out into the ocean. And the next morning, their father, who was there to surf, was heading out to surf, and I was within earshot as one of the girls called out to him. "Be careful," she admonished her dad. "There are baby turtles out there." "Look around, Dad. Don't hurt any of them," she was saying. As we pursue our lives and the enjoyment of our lives, we also need to realize and be aware of our capacity for harm. We need to live with the health and well-being of others always in mind. As I look at what she said, now a suggestion in clay, it admonishes me to live both responsibly and with intent to connect for the good of others. What is my cause and concern that is beyond me? What am I doing to make a better vision of the world real and possible? One of the foremost books I ever studied is A Feminist Ethic of Risk by Professor and Unitarian Universalist Sharon Welch. More recently, she wrote a book called Sweet Dreams in America, Making Ethics and Spirituality Work, in which she describes the moral strength found in the courage and humor of a community that continues to learn, to love, to acknowledge our capacity for harm. And from that acknowledgement, to find together the balm for the journey, presence, and witness to the struggles and joys of life. To find together the balm for the journey, presence, and witness to the struggles and joys of life. Hello, Mission Peak Unitarian Universalist congregation. That sounds like you. Keep living life. No Wi-Fi. Go surf. Be careful. There are baby turtles out there. 3 suggestions for the new year. 3 guidelines to help transform and guide my life, my living into living more fully. Personally, I think what a good way to begin the year, with the gift of a boon, the light of the revelations that have come from this journey. Yes, this journey out, but also the journey of just pausing, reflecting, and dusting off, opening up and finding a treasure that was always present, just sitting in my house, in my home, in me. A treasure to now intentionally include in my life and my living anew. In my notes, I wrote that honey inscribed in clay, the epiphanies are treasures she heard, and I wrote, or maybe rather, she actually made them treasures that they are, because she put the time and the love in to make the gift she created and gave to me. You can put that tablet up there. Maybe she's the real hero of the story. Maybe she's the goddess who handed down the tablet and the suggestions. So as you reflect, what would you inscribe on your tablet? What are your epiphanies? What are the gifts and illuminations and revelations for your life and living fully into the new year? For you are the hero of your journey. There is no one else. You are the hero of your adventure. And you are the hero of your life. Trials and revelations are what it's all about. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
As we close out this service, we extinguish our chalice, but as the words will show, that is not all that we extinguish. Let us recite together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
For our benediction, let's start with the words from T.S. Eliot. What we call a beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. We shall not cease from exploration And the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. If here you have found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another that they may come true. And if you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. Go in peace, and may the peace and strength of this community, these people, this day, go with you. Namaste.